Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Party. I'm my buddy Rhett. I've got an almond for her. That's her favorite, as far as I know. I can tell. Put that in there, and yeah. So here we are. It's Sunday, 10:04 a.m. I think it's probably already about 80 degrees outside Fahrenheit. I don't know. It probably seems like the difference in temperature is so dramatic that it doesn't really matter if like you don't usually you don't even have to say like if it's Fahrenheit or Celsius because um, like your the difference is so dramatic, right? Like so if it was 80 Celsius, I think that'd be super hot, and everyone would be like, oh yeah, definitely talking about Fahrenheit. I think it gets kind of funky when we get like 30s. If it's 38, 41, something like that, it can be extraordinarily confusing. So that's and I think that's super relevant to the domain that we're talking about in this voice Angular API, because like things sometimes are confusing and sometimes they're not, and there's very subtle differences. So if it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit, I can say 80 degrees and I don't really need to add the Fahrenheit. But if it was like 37 or 38 degrees Fahrenheit, oh my gosh, that's so different because I believe like 37 would be like 2 degrees Celsius. So like, it's a reasonable number for between there, between for Celsius. It's also a reasonable number for Fahrenheit, but they mean very different temperatures. And I think that that is probably one of the major issues in voice. So I've been thinking about it a lot. That whole Japanese thing yesterday really kind of threw me for a loop on sort of trying to understand what is going on, like how things work. So like, and I don't know, like it's like, so I speak English. My first language I could speak was Spanish, but I can't speak Spanish anymore. But I do still have some grammatical habits from Spanish that have sort of seeped into my English. But you know, it's just like for the most part it's English. But then the differences between Spanish and English grammatically compared to is very subtle if you compare it to like the difference between Japanese and English. And so here's my understanding of Japanese, and it's probably like it's insanely incomplete or straight up wrong. But because like I know that in Japanese a lot of the words are just a single symbol. But when I say Japanese, I say hello in Japanese, I get a bunch of symbols. So that's weird because my initial impression was that there was a single symbol that sort of mapped to every word. But that's not true. It's definitely not true because, or I'm pretty sure it's not true because, like, hello is a word. I'm pretty sure it's a word in Japanese. And maybe not. Maybe it's a whole sentence. I don't know. But when I say hello in Japanese in this tool, I, when I say hello in Japanese in this tool, I get like 6 characters. So it's like konnichiwa, right? So if I come into discrete and I come in and I set this to Japanese, Japan, it doesn't matter, Japanese, US or Japan, and I say konnichiwa. So, this we get all these characters and somehow that means hello. And I don't know konnichiwa like in English. So if I say the same word in English, so we'll change this to English. Konnichiwa. See, it's like, and that I believe is the English spelling of this word, right? So it's like 10 letters. This is like 5 letters, right? So that alone should tell you that there's a problem, but that there's a sort of a, not a problem, but like a disconnect. Like, are their basic words, characters are, and the sounds that they map to must be like different than, like, maybe wa is a single character. I think ChatGPT has tried to say that to me several times. So, like, we have sounds. Every one of our letters maps to at least one sound, sometimes multiple sounds. Maybe they all map to multiple sounds. I'm not certain. I know I remember, like, in grammar classes, them saying, like, there's a strong B and a weak B sound. And then, like, I never really, like, it just sort of went over my head. But if I go to ChatGPT and I go and I hit this, right? Like, so what does that mean? I mean, okay, konnichiwa is typically, and then can you break, and you break, can you map the sounds to characters? Absolutely. Okay, so sound. So ko is like a whole character is ko, but we don't have that in English. We don't have but we do have an n, and it kind of looks like rn. And then ni, we do not have a ni character. We don't have a single. See, we have two actually. Yeah, our sound is ko for this one, maps to this one character. Um, Sound and Ramoji, Latin spelling. Interesting. I don't even know what that's all about. Chi is that. We do not have a single character for chi. We have three characters that map to chi. They have one character for that. Um, so, like, the mappings are just completely different, but that is still, like, in the same realm of the way our language works in English, the way English works. So, like, okay, so that's wild, right? So now let's say and this is a legitimate question. I thought Japan had single characters that map to a whole word. All right, you're absolutely right. So I'm not absolutely right because that was a bunch of characters mixed together. Phonetic characters represent syllables, word used for native grammar, like verb endings. And then there's that was hiragana, and then katana, and I'm just katakana. So these are words that I've sort of heard before, but they are they are like they didn't have enough meaning in my brain to for me to be able to make sense of them. So then there's so so this is, I think, was this hello? No, I don't know. So kanji, this means Sunday. So is there a hello in kanji? Oh, wait, we got more. So for your example, it's hiragana. So this is complete news to me because grammatical greeting, but a word like Japan is written. Okay, is there, so this question is probably gibberish. Now that I think about it, it seems very reasonable from an English speaker's perspective, but it's gibberish, I think, in real life. So, what is the kanji character for hello? It is a little surprising. There is no single character. So hello to me seems like a foundational word that every language would have. Maybe that even isn't even right? So this feels like The Matrix, right? It's like the movie The Matrix, where it's just like every single thing that you sort of understand is not even like a thing. It's greeting, not a content word. So this whole concept, content words. I think that's the first time I've heard the word content word. So maybe only content words are in uh, kanji. So, and that is probably such a if that is true, which I'm not sure, but let's say that's true. Let's say that only like what we would call nouns um, are written in kanji, and maybe not even not all nouns. Maybe only like inanimate objects or something like that. Um, so it's actually a shortened grammatical phrase, not a noun or verb. Another novel concept in my brain. A shortened grammatical phrase. I've never heard that those words put together that way. Kanji are mostly used for nouns, verb roots, and adjectives, not functions, words, or particles. However, here's a deeper look. If you were to stretch the origin, you would see something like, "How are you today?" In that longer sentence, now, day, today, as written in kanji. So I think what we're talking about here is that just the very foundation, absolute at the most basic level, uh, kanji, I mean Japanese is just wildly different than English. In U.S. American English, they're just very exotically in uh, just insanely different concepts. So, and that like if you want to write some software that is like effective, if you want to do that, you have to understand the domain. And the domain, many times, actually, probably most times, is more complex than coding. But coding has become a lot more complex as over time. So like what used to be a pretty basic set of things that you could do have now, and it used to be called basic language, have now like morphed into a million different languages that are very specific to specific things, and um, and some of them are just like compounds of languages, and like Angular is a compound of a whole bunch of different languages together. Some of them are just custom Angular pieces like Angular templating language, but then others are just like extensions of existing languages or just existing languages like JavaScript. But then some of them are like languages that are designed for a very specific thing like TypeScript. And then some of them, like a, not a specific thing, but it's designed with the whole purpose of just making the code a little bit more like making the code a little bit, more easy to maintain. You know, that's the only purpose. So it's like a language that is a superset of another lower language that, and it's only used for a very specific thing, and very specific end goal. And then you have languages like CSS, which is only basically has very limited things that it can do, but it's very good at those limited things. But then you have SCSS, which is sitting on top of that. So we have all these complexities and moving parts across that. And the thing is I think the problem with most software development efforts is that um, they don't have a proper balance of all of those pieces of knowledge. And I think that kind of like really like it was a problem. It's always been a problem, but I think it really got intense when companies decided that they were going to sort of like when I first started developing, if I got hired someplace, it was usually 9 times out of 10, it was like my boss's boss, like at the top of the chain before like the CEO, the C-suite, and there was no CIO. CIOs didn't exist yet. So the top of the chain for me it was usually like a vice president of sales, or a vice president of marketing, or a vice president of accounting. Some kind of person that was part of like an actual domain, and they were the people we were supposed to make happy, right? So, and what was really nice, what was really interesting is like the goodies and the sort of side benefits of everything that you would get would change based on what domain you were working in. So if you were working in sales, there were always lots of bonuses and lots of incentives and lots of scheming to get all the right people in all the right places. But then like if you worked on like maybe some like in airplanes, like if that was your domain, usually you got like free rides, you got to go be on the airplane, you got to go sit in the cockpit, you got to go do things that, because you worked in that domain, there'd be like a lot of side benefits within that domain. And then sort of maybe in like the early 2000s, they sort of started saying, you know what, we need consistency across all these different domains in our software. We need our software to work in a consistent way across it. And I think everything has just gotten like every decision that we've made as a industry ever since then has been poisoned by that. Um, I think that just my personal observation. But anyway, so I'm gonna move out of like sort of the language domain here. Oh, and I did want to make one last thing is I think the fact that they call it a voice API is so insanely incomplete. Um, I think that it's voice communication, and I didn't know this before I started this, but like talking in voice is a huge subset of language. Like there are plenty of people that like it. I've always heard my whole life that like twins will make their own language. Human beings, when you put them in a subgroup, will create their own verbal language, not language, their own verbal communication scheme. You know, if you watch like any kind of sports and all that, they tend to generate their own communication scheme that may have to do with like hand signals. It might be words. It might be single sounded words, things like that. So teams will come up with their whole language, all of that. So voice, if they had just built a voice API, that's probably what it would have just been fixated on, and we might have even like sort of naturally evolved into a voice scheme for communicating with software that that's just like doesn't even map, like when I used to play soccer a lot, I remember people would yell through, through, through. And that meant like if the ball's coming at you, don't touch it, just let it go through. Because you can't see everything, but like there's another open person in a better position behind you. Um, they would yell turn, turn, turn. That usually meant that okay, receive the ball, but you have time. There's no one really standing right next to you, so you can just turn and look and survey the field and make a good decision. But if they said like Anya, 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 which isn't even an English word, but they said that it meant like somebody was very close to you, so you were gonna have to do an action. Whatever it is you plan to do, you need to do it. You can't turn and look. You can't. You have to. So, anyways, we sort of created our own hybrid voice application, and I think that when I was thinking about voice, I was thinking more in those terms. I don't know, but at the beginning, because this has been incredibly challenging to me, is understanding the voice API. It's probably, from a domain perspective, been the most challenging thing that I've ever worked on. So language API would definitely have been a better name for this thing. Um, but, and I would imagine most of the code in there is more about language than it is about sounds. So there's that. But then I don't even think language API would have been a fair name for it, because I think it's more we only care about a subset of languages, and we only care about a subset of languages that have evolved to the point where they have like currency, where they have a date format, where they have a whole locale. So this is really more of a locale API. Um, and I think that that is like the thing. And my suspicion is that the original intention was to create a hey there. The original intention was to create a voice API. Like that was like kind of like what I was thinking, but then they were just like they made some foundational decisions that like kind of poisoned it. So I would imagine, I don't know, I wasn't there, I wasn't part of it, but I would imagine the idea was like that people would be able to do Klingon or Navajo language or Hopi Hopi Native American language, um, stuff like that. I think there was yesterday I was seeing that there was like 1,600 languages in India, but only like 200 have full locales. So that means the other 1,400 languages aren't even in any way, shape, or form represented in this system. So I'm guessing that that's why this whole thing kind of stalled out. Even with all that, it's still very powerful. All right. So in my entire career, I've always sort of meshed domain and and computers into like sort of one sort of thing, and I think that's why my a lot of times my videos end up like really rambling, and it's because I really the problem is that they're inexplicably like for the most part those two things are tied together and you can't really get away from that, but there are some things that are just exclusively language. It's just about language. It doesn't the computers don't care. And then there's some things that are exclusively computers, which has nothing to do the um, with the language side of things, right? So, and now I'm about to start working on something that has nothing to do with the language side of things, and it is pretty confusing. So, like, basically, in this tool, you can click this button, and this pops up, and this is a dialog box, and it says update discrete settings. Um, but we don't even want that discrete. We're just updating settings. And that's because the settings are the same for discrete and continuous. Um, but when I initially started, I didn't understand continuous at all. And I was trying to figure out discrete. And I knew I had to set settings. I assumed that the continuous settings would be very different. Um, and they weren't. So basically, I ended up creating like a discrete dialogue inside a discrete, and now I had to move it out of. Or it made sense. It would have been very confusing for me to leave it in discrete and then try to use it in continuous. It'd been technically very possible, but then when I tried to understand what was going on in the future, I'd be like, wait, why is the discrete dialogue? I need to change the continuous value. Blah 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 blah. And it would be very confusing. So there's like kind of a third thing to worry about is like what about just the application, like how the application works, how it's architected, things like that. That's not really truly a computer science sort of computing thing. That's more of a what makes sense in this system, in this application based on the decisions that were made. Um, so like when I'm working on code, like those are all the things that you have to be thinking about all the time. So you got like a million things going on. And so then it's just like, that's why it's very, very difficult to kind of create a training that a person would just be able to just take up and then they could just go someplace and work on software. There's just a lot of moving parts, and I never really realized that before. It's just kind of since when I first started coding, that wasn't the case. That wasn't basically when you coded something, it was just code, and like, but I guess that's not even true because I know the first things that me and my little brother used to code were like Dungeons and Dragons games that you command line games, where you would read like something like a troll has entered the room, what would you like to do? A, this, B, that, C, do that. Well, like we knew what a troll was. We didn't realize that, oh no, we spent years playing Dungeons and Dragons. We knew all the different things. We didn't realize that we had this domain knowledge. Oh, but and that domain knowledge was just sort of naturally built into us through our activities. That is probably the actual inverse of what happens today. Most people learn to code and then they go get a job, and then as a side effect of being in that job, they learn the domain. But now, many people get pulled into or virtually all developers get pulled into a subgroup that is only computer programming, and then they pick up generic job tasks in there. And so, trying to learn the domain through that, the lens of the way software is taught in the United States today, is extraordinarily difficult. And I think I learned from just the way I came up that to desperately try to figure out the domain. So like where I work right now, I work in legislation, and I have always watched the meetings. Like we have videos of the meetings that they have. We have videos of the legislative process. We have all kinds of videos and stuff, and I like to watch those videos because it teaches me the domain. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one in our development team that ever does that, and I am the oldest person. Well, yeah, well, the second oldest person in there, but I was the oldest for a long time. Um, and I think I was just like around when became very obvious that you really needed to understand the domain if you want to write effective code. And I think all the young developers that are coming in, especially like in their early 20s, those sorts of people, like they've never even experienced that. So, um, so they have no way of knowing how important the domain is. So, anyways, I do need to change this to update settings because it is for both of them. And I think that in the English language, I don't know if it works this way in the other languages, but in English, like if I remove this, it automatically becomes a more general statement, update settings. So I want to do that. So most of my career, you could do this. You could just go like this, and then do a search like that, and you could find it. And that was the way I did it. For about 10 years of my career, that never worked. Never, ever, ever, ever worked. And that was because everybody got fixated on globalization, which is weird because that um, actually sort of dovetails into this. It's the same exact problem. So for years and years and years, I would work on websites where they were like, "Oh, we're going to be multi-language," and um, and so what you wouldn't ever. I have no idea what I just did. Um, you would never find any for about 10 years. All you'd ever find is something that was like some kind of like update settings, something like that. And basically, um, and then they had some pre-processor, something that would process that would go in and replace it with the language based on how you ran a build thing. So it would come in and it would automatically, and it would be like, oh, we're doing French right now, and it would put a French phrase in there, which did not work. Like everyone tried it, every website, everything I worked on had that. That did not work, and it didn't work because the very structure of the way language works is different. So there, invariably, we'd find out that there was like something like this, that there was just no legitimate, just straight up swap for those words. And I remember because I worked at CNN where we had like a ton of different websites for different languages. And basically, the way we did it was we build out a website, and there'd be like the French version, and there were French editors, and there were French uh, uh, reporters, and there were French, even some French developers and stuff like that. And they had their own website, and they built it, and we used the same kind of core base code, but they built out their everything themselves. and it was there. And then we had a Spanish one, Spanish speaking one, and we might even have like a Spanish one that's specifically for Spain and another Spanish one that's for Mexico. And they would have whole different teams that were for that. And then a few years later, I interviewed for the Weather Channel, and that was the first time. So I'm telling her, she's asking, "Oh, how does CNN do multi-language?" And I explained that to her. She was so offended. Like it truly offended her. Like it was like I had said her child was ugly or something. Like she was so mad, and the reason she was mad was because she had always thought she did that concept just never crossed her mind. She always thought it was like this, what I was just saying, like these little codes, and that you had these places and then the stuff. So kind of like the way this is, how like I can say a word and I tell it what language I want it in, and then it gives me that, and then I can say the same word and it works that this way. So then I get this English version and the Spanish version. But what if we have two words that have sound exactly the same, but they have two different meanings? So there's like hi. I think hi means something different in Japan than it does in the U.S. I think hi in the U.S. is like basically a shortened version of hello. I think hi in Japanese is like yes, yes. And I'm only saying that based on watching like TV shows and stuff. So like then all of a sudden there's a whole different set of issues. You can't just swap them out. Anyways, I just got back caught up in that. So anyways, in that sort of domain thing. But anyways, so that went away. I've literally not seen a multi-language um, site in 10 plus years now. But I do, when anytime I watch the Angular live streams, there's always a handful of questions about how Angular has not improved the way they do multi-language in like years. They came out strong out of the gate, very serious about that, and then they just sort of dropped it. But anyways, I want to change that just to say update settings, so that should be easy, easy peasy. Delete, save. You always want to double check that. I've noticed a lot of young developers especially will like go, okay, that worked, and that's done. But okay, so we have our update settings. We have our dialog form. Since the dialog form for continuous and for discrete are the same, which I double checked that yesterday, and the way I double checked it is through inference. I inferred that because I can say, I can go over here and I can say Japanese, and that is so crazy. Konnichiwa, and then I can go over here and I can say Konnichiwa. That I get, since I get this in these characters, that it must work, and there's no reason. But you should. That's just a coincidence. That's just a lucky coincidence for me. So this is going to take a lot less time because I don't actually have to build out a new one. I just need to call the exact same um, dialog box. Now, like a lot of times when you're working in a place, the product managers will be like, "Oh, okay, we're calling the same dialog box." So, and last time when they called the same dialog box, it took them uh, a half a day. It was a 1 point story. But now, um, so this next one should be a 1 point story, but you find out it's not actually the same. And when you figure out it's not actually the same, well, then you've got to build out routing. There's all kinds of stuff you may have to build out to get it to work. And, that's just sort of the reality. Now, and then like you could decide, oh, you know what, I want this to, since it's calling the same thing, I just would rather this whole thing just be its own component. I don't think that that's worth it, but maybe I will once I actually dig into how it works. But let's see what this thing does. So I'm going to right click on this and see if I can easily figure out what function it's calling. So that's this thing. I'm going to pop this out so I get a little bit more, I can see a little bit better. And so here we are. Now we're debugging, right? Whole nother skill set, completely crazily different, and all that. And it just takes time to learn all these things. Um, it, and I can only imagine how frustrating and difficult the whole thing must seem to like someone who's coming in new. Like, oh my God, how am I going to learn all those things? And you probably will never be able to learn everything that I know, but you will have advantage on new things. So as new stuff comes out, um, you'll have advantages because I may be stuck doing old stuff while you're doing new stuff. I do try really hard to stay um, up to date. So I don't know. I don't think it's super obvious what the function is, but I do know that it's in this class. No, it's not in this class. I do know that it is in the discrete component. And I just remember that. Oh, and I do have a, okay, I have a record button, but I do not have and that, so that's funny. So I made that into its own component. So this is called open discrete form. So let's go see what open discrete form does and see if it's just like a couple lines, we probably just want to copy paste. But if it's a lot of stuff, we'll probably want to pull this out into some shared code. So I'm hoping for just a couple lines. Um, but, go to definition. Okay, so all it is one line, really. This is just one line. I spread it across multiple lines, but uh, it probably makes more sense to just copy this over. Now, it doesn't know what a discrete setting component is, so we're probably going to have to import it in the other one. And that's where this happens. But the Visual Studio Code would probably just do that for you, would be my guess when I go in here. So I want to go into my continuous, and I just want to copy and paste this function and just see how that works. Now, should we reuse it? I don't think so. I really don't. I do think that most people would say that you should reuse it, but I don't think so. I don't think there's enough code to justify the abstract nature of reusing this. If it was like 30 lines of code or something, or even 10 lines of code, it probably makes a lot of sense to try to come up with some way to just, instead of just reuse something, like put this into a service or something like that. So there's two things it doesn't know about. One, I think it will easily be able to figure out, and that's this dialog component. So we want to pay close attention. You don't want to just select this, because many times there'll be multiple places, and that is a very common mistake. And I've seen plenty of people like just select this and go, okay, yeah, that worked, and commit it and push it and never even try it. That's a mistake. Okay, so this dialog, so yeah, that's not possible. There is a local variable called dialog. And here's where like copy paste was probably a good idea, because like things can get pretty funky if like this will be this one's dialog, and then that one over there will be that one's dialog. They're two different entities. They're the exact same code, but they're two different actual pieces of memory. And I think that things could get really weird if we made them the same piece of memory, especially behind the scenes in code that we don't even have control over. I'm going to go back over to the discrete component, and I'm going to figure out how we set up dialog. Okay, so this is again, and I don't know why we made it read only. I am guessing that I made this read only because I directly copied it out of ChatGPT. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Actually, I think I'm going to try to get rid of it. I like to not have code that I don't understand, even if it seems good. But it might be required. I don't know. I just don't even know. I guess we should ask. ChatGPT gave us this code. Let's see if it knows why. why I have this code. So I have this code. Don't know why it has a read only. I think that's a descriptor is the right word for it. If it's the wrong word, ChatGPT will typically gently sort of correct you. Includes read only. This context cannot be assigned after. Oh, okay, so read only means it can't be assigned after. In other words, so it's kind of like const. This pattern is when using standalone JavaScript, basically a style choice. It's a style choice and adds some immutability. So in effect, it's like const. The effect read only is a class property, and it is a style type of thing. And I would say, I'd say that's a good thing. I think that is. I changed my mind. I was going to get rid of it, but I think it's a good thing because I think it's like when you're. That's one less thing that you have to sort of consider when you're trying to think through this code is, oh, did they make some sort of, did they reassign it somewhere? Is it been, so, you know, because you can't, unfortunately, and that was very silly of them. You can't do this, which is weird. So read only doesn't make the object mutable, only the reference. Oh, that's true. The reference, yeah. Well, so does const though. Const doesn't make the object immutable either. Do you know? Just allow put const in component attributes. Yes, there's a clear reason why const isn't allowed in class properties to a block. Oh, that. Well, still, but it's still block scoped. It's scoped from here to here in that block. Treats classifiers like object definitions, not a place for a variable declaration. That makes sense. You define. Yeah, so I don't know. I think this is probably one of these things that will, in 5 years, they'll be like, let's let's add the ability to add constant let, and then they'll deprecate read only, and then, you know. So now that sort of makes me change my mind because, like, I suspect read only is not long for this world. I think it makes way more sense to just allow people to put const in there. I'm just going to give it my opinion and see what it says. Read only exist if they allowed const, and that would make more sense to people that have already learned const. Okay, so yeah, it's totally, and I don't even think they give a shit about the actual developers. I think what they care about is is like it's going to be. I think. Well, okay, so I feel like it would be easier for the people that maintain the software I mean, like maintain the transpiler to use const instead of read only. Or maybe at first it's read easy, but once they've uh, existed. Um, yeah, see, read only is a workaround. Feels redundant if you already assume, but it see because JavaScript doesn't allow constant class bodies. TypeScript fills in the gap by offering read only. Um, so um, read only will eventually be deprecated for const. And then I will to go in and remove read only. Through breaking changes and language favors, but the good news is read only and TypeScript will not be deprecated in favor of const. Here's why. From a language, read only and const serve different roles. Const is for variables. Read only is for class. Okay, that is not. I do not think that is why. They are not interchangeable. Whoa, that's freaking me out. But thank you. I wonder if because this is syntactic separation, they can't just swap one for the other. Would break massive amounts of code. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's really hurt their feelings in the past. Seems like it would be easy. Yeah. So I think that all those arguments are lame. Um, so yeah, I don't want to use read only because I don't think it really offers anything other than like it makes it a little bit easier to sort of reason about, but I don't think it's enough easier to reason about to make it um, worth the like let's say I'm still playing around with this software in 5 years, and then and then I'm trying to upgrade to like the latest Angular, and like let's say I do go through the upgrades every few months, and I go to upgrade to the latest Angular, and I haven't even looked at this code, and so I don't even know what the implications are. Um, and they will likely have a tool that will just do it for you, but then I don't know what the implications are. Um, and I don't see any reason to make it like I don't see a good reason to make it that other than just syntactic sugar. Um, so I am not going to do that. It's like why put myself in a position? I don't really like these to be here. And so the one thing I do want to sort of point out at this point is that um, like at this point we're not even um, like we haven't put a single thought into domain, and this is still extremely complex, difficult stuff, and we don't even care about domain. um, so it's I don't know. I think I think what will probably happen, and I don't know if we may, yeah, like I'm, well, so I do think that we're going to have software development in the US. We may not have enterprise software development in the US, but we'll have like mom and pop software development. Like my next door neighbor, he's a handyman. He goes and fixes people's houses and stuff. And his daughter is created like a little bakery, and her bakery, and she's like 13 years old, and absolute sweetheart of a kid, and we we fully intend to buy her baked goods, but like their website that they is just Facebook. They have a Facebook page, but they don't even know how to tell people to go to the Facebook page. So they have a card that has an OCR code in it, and you have to use your phone to go to the OCR page that's only at Facebook, and um, like they just can't afford a programmer. But programmers, but they would love to have a programmer. They would love to have someone come over and spend an hour or two with them for like $50, $45, something like that. But you're never going to get a computer programmer to come over for an hour or two for $50, $45, something like that. So, maybe enterprise will leave the U.S. and then the, you know, we'll have to make do on mom and pop money. Little jobs and big jobs for medium-sized businesses, things like that. I don't know. Okay, so I think we have it working. So let's see. No. So let's see. In our console, see if something breaks. Oh, I never wired it up on the front in the template. So let's go to the template. The name of this thing I already forgot is open discrete form. So I'm just going to copy that just so I make sure I don't have a typo when I get over there. And then doom, and then where is our settings icon? I guess, I don't know. I think it's probably on the button. I can't remember. Let's go look real quick. It could be on the icon itself or on the button. I'm not sure. So I'm going to go back to discrete and just to stay consistent. So we did it on the button. So, and I'm just going to copy that. And let's go up to our button. Let's add that in there. Let's line that up. And cross your fingers. English. I don't know any other words. Oh, I do know this one. Now they use the same letters, but they have like accents and stuff on their letters. So I'm going to do Spanish Spain. I'm going to say hola and see what we get. Hola. All right, let's try English. Say the same thing. Oh, actually, let me go back to Spanish. And just let's get a whole phrase in there. And I don't even know. I probably should do Mexican because I don't know that I know. I don't really know Spain Spanish at all. Hola, ¿cómo estás? So you see we have like these little, so we know that it worked, right? So that's a win. And then let's try that exact same phrase, but in US English. Hola, ¿cómo estás? So you see. And it's kind of interesting because they did give us a non-English character here. And then hola, comma, esters is one of the things. And that's kind of interesting because like if I do the same thing over here, hola, ¿cómo estás? See, it works more like that, and we don't have any alternates, but we do have alternates. And that is another kind of funny, unexpected behavior is that in some things you'll get okay, let's try this. We're in English, right? Yeah. Hello. And see, we have five alternates. But then if I go to continuous, hello, we only get one. So in phrases in continuous, you get a bunch of alternates, but in single words in continuous, you only get one. And it's the exact opposite in discrete. In discrete, you just get one. when you do a whole phrase, but you get a bunch of alternates. Like how how in a meeting, let's say you have a meeting, you don't have a tool like this, and you're trying to describe. Oh, well, so first of all, getting their heads around the fact that there's two different types of of voice, discrete and continuous, and what that means would be a real, so like let's say you have a language expert, someone they know language inside and out. They're like, that's their domain, is language. Now you got to explain to them, oh, well, we have two kinds of language. And they'd be like, what do you mean there's two kinds? No, there's not two kinds. No, we have continuous and discrete. What the hell does the word discrete even mean? Like, oh, this would be so difficult to communicate without this tool. But like, let's say you have this tool and you go, okay, so let's go through these steps and see that's how this one works, and then see over here that's how that one works, and then you'd be like, oh, and see someone like a UI like sort of usability person might say, I don't want to have these two different things. I want, like, when you do the settings, I want here for you to select continuous or discrete. And they may think that that's a pretty simple, like, so, okay, reusing this in two places was so simple, right? Like, very, very simple. But I didn't know that when we started. And I don't think like a product manager or something like that would be able to just to determine, oh, okay, that's going to be super simple. But like making it to where when you pop up and then you select it and then you show the right thing would be extraordinarily difficult, because the whole way that you process the returns and all that would be different. So like, I mean, the tables look completely different. And the reason the tables look different is because the way we get data is totally different. Um, and trying to figure that out would be extremely difficult. But anyway, so we have that working. That was the goal, was to get this pop-up working. And so I think we were done with this sort of work on this. And we are ready to do a commit. So let's just make sure we don't have anything silly in there. So all we did was add, and actually I would like that just to be a separate commit. So I'm just going to add that one. So this is a staged change. The way you stage it is in this tool is hitting this plus button. If you wanted to stage it through the command line, you would say commit add, and then the name of the file. I don't know why they didn't call this added changes, so that you could stay consistent between those names. I don't even know why, like, yeah, why would we have stage? That doesn't make any sense. But anyways, git commit dash m. Well, I always like to do a get status at this point. Get status, so I can just double check. Yeah, so we have this changes to be committed. So they don't even call it staged changes. Oh wait, yeah, they don't even call it staged changes. Then it says changes not staged for committed. Like, why couldn't they? This should say changes stage to be committed, or staged changes to be committed. Probably staged changes to be committed should be what that word says. But anyways, just my opinion. Git commit, and then I'm going to say dash m, and I'm going to say adds Japanese, US Japanese. Pay, that is just so crazy how I always forget this word. Locale. And so something I was thinking would be pretty cool and useful would be to, like, up here have like what the current locale is, and then next to it what the current max alternatives is, and then maybe next to it like a little thing where you could just pop up, or maybe tells you how many grammars exist or something, like up in here. And that would probably be a lot better. I don't think it's worth it, but yeah, I was thinking about that today. All right, so get status. All right, so now that's gone. Um, there's no, we could push it. There's really no reason. Okay, that makes sense. We just added a click handler. This makes sense. All we did was basically import a bunch of stuff and then add a open discrete form. So I watch all my videos all the time, and I noticed that I just have started belching on camera, and I'm trying to stop. I do watch my videos on the platform, and have I'm really actively stopping doing it. I have noticed that a lot of people at work, not necessarily at my job, but in general, like when I watch people like doing these things, or I watch the angler people, there's like a lot of people that do that. Um, and I suspect that would be because they do not watch themselves. It's easy to start doing something when you don't watch yourself. Um, yeah, I apologize for that. That was extremely rude, and I am trying to stop that. Um, so I removed the read only. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think my conversation about that, of it being a bit of a high risk of being deprecated in TypeScript. It's also like probably not in older versions of TypeScript, so maybe your code won't be quite as easy to move around into different systems. I don't know. I would like to avoid read only um, until I feel a little bit more confident in its legs, because I just think const does the exact same thing. Um, I removed the word discrete because this is no longer a discrete. Uh, this is basically global. We could add the word global, but I think global is like expected if if you're if you're doing stuff. It would help a lot, I guess, if I had the actual um, like what it is right now. Then you would know when you change this, you'd see that change up there, and it would be like easy to infer that, oh, by the way, that's above the tabs. That's something that's above the tabs. Or actually, I guess it would be kind of cool to have another one of these little areas that has that stuff in it. Um, has this pop up, all of this stuff in it, and then maybe it wouldn't even make sense to have a pop up anymore and not have a settings. Um, Again, this is just a tool for. It has a whole bunch of reasons that this tool exists, but it's not like supposed to be a finished product. I would like to get to the finished products, which is, again, one of them is there's going to be two of them. One for discrete, that's going to be say hello, which will give you like a little recording of hello in a language, in the selected language, and then we'll let you practice saying hello in that language. I think that's an excellent proof of concept that will actually be a lot of fun and all that. And then continuous, I'm going to make something for that too, and then that thing is going to be a flashcard builder. So something so that you can just say, um, uh, what color is the sky? Blue. And so this would be the question, and that would be the answer. Um, and then that would be that. I think that's going to be that's kind of something I've wanted my whole life, because I really am a big fan of flashcards. So I think we have two technologies here that have different strengths, and this will be, um, and those will be really good final projects to do for this. Um, and yeah, that's what I would like to work on. And I don't think either of them will take too particularly long. When I do that, I'll probably do one on Saturday and one on Sunday. Um, so that will be good. I was really like, I would have guessed that this would be the most, like, there would have been a huge move forward in this technology. Like, this technology would become humongous. I do not think so anymore. Well, it's definitely not going to be humongous in in the enterprise. And the reason is just the way the technology is set up. It just is not doesn't it's not going to work um, for the enterprise. And the fact that it's an unstable API is going to make it like I don't think things are extraordinarily expensive to do in the enterprise. So building out a little application, like a lot of times, a developer might work on some piece of software for a couple years and build something really nice out, and it'll actually just fit in perfectly with something that the enterprise wants, and they'll be like, yeah, we'll give you $5 million for it. I mean, I've never experienced this. I've just heard about this, um, because it makes a lot of sense for them because um, like if you have clear like it makes a lot of sense for them because trying to get anything done in the enterprise is just super duper expensive. And like the one of the things that really frustrates the leadership in most enterprises is they ask for things and then they don't get it. And that isn't just an enterprise thing. Like we had this deck built on the side of our house, and one of the things I wanted, like the foundational thing, the absolute foundational thing that I wanted out of that deck was that um, we could park a car under it. Like that was like the whole freaking point to the deck. And then so we brought people in and blah blah blah. They built out the deck. It is beautiful. I enjoy it. Um, we get compliments on it all the time. You cannot park a car under there, and you can't park a car under there because by law you have to have a a column like every 6 feet to hold it up, and cars are wider than 6 feet. So they're like, okay, yeah, no, we'll build that for you. It's gonna be awesome. Blah blah blah. They built it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna park my car under here, and I was like, wait, I can't get by these columns. Oh yeah, by law you can't. You have to have every 6 feet, and it's just like, what? That was like literally what I wanted. That enterprise leadership. That's what they get out of software developers all the time. Like they say, this is what I want. Blah 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 blah. 6 months later they get something back and it's nothing like what they were asking for. And a lot of times it's just because what I was asking for was not feasible because of Georgia, and I think it might be Marietta coding. It's called codes, uh, construction code law. It is not feasible to build what I wanted. um, Anyways, afterwards, of course, after it was all built, experts came in and said, "Oh, no, yeah, that could have been done, but you would have had to do X, Y, Z, all these other things to do it. But yeah, had you told us up front, we could have done it that way." And I was just like, "That's the one thing I told you." Like I told you that specifically, but somewhere that got lost in translation. That happens all the time. Anyways, let me add this: git add dot git commit dash m implements settings for continuous. And git and push. All right. So where are we at now? So the next thing we want to do is add grammars. I believe, and I could be completely wrong, but basically, what I want is, I'm going to say what I want, and then I'm going to say what I think it does. I'm going to want like an area box, a text area box, and then you write in your grammars, which are words that it's looking out for, and then um, you um, and they're comma delimited, and then basically the service will take that, and it has to do some special stuff to add the grammars um, to the object, the recognition object. And then I believe what that means is if I give it a grammar of hello, I won't get these 5 results back. I'll just get hello. I won't get hello with a W, hello with an S, hello with 5 zeros, and hello with 6 zeros. Like I won't get that. I'll get just hello. Let's see. Like if I say, and this doesn't make well. Like if I do this, red, white, blue. kind of weird. Oh, okay, because I had a break in there. But yeah, if I was only looking for colors, I'm hoping what that means is that this one wouldn't come back in because it knows I'm looking for. I do not know what the difference between this white and this white is. That's weird. And then blue came in perfectly fine. And I'm guessing this one of these, and why we have a minus white. That's crazy. So so I think if I had grammars that were just all the different colors, then you could say red, and you aren't going to get READ. And so then, like, if you had something like, oh, I want to be able to set like the colors on whatever I'm looking at, you could have, you wouldn't try to make it color READ. I'm thinking that's how it works. I don't know if it's going to work that way. Nothing has worked the way I expected. Let's try this. Red, white, blue. So I never even said and. I don't know why it decided that I might have said and. So I'm guessing in this situation, if all I had was red, white, and blue as red, white, blue, red, white, blue. The fact that I said and there that last time made me like nervous about that. But as you see, we got 25 signals that time. I don't know if it includes like the previous group. If it just added on to that. Oh yeah, so it left my previous ones, all that. So if you wanted to clear it, you'd have to have a button. I use this clear button so rarely that I don't think it's worth implementing over here. I might change my mind, but now that is wild that we lost our this count when we came back. All we have is the last one. Let me try that again. We're on continuous, right? Red, green, yellow. So that's interesting. The three choices, but yeah, they were lost. So basically the history, oh, okay, because that is held locally. Again, like something that we could fix so that it stores the old ones, and when we come back it brings them or something like that, but I don't think it's worth it. I am definitely eager to move forward um, with with uh, with that, with the next steps. But anyway, so yeah, I'm hoping that grammar sort of stabilizes this and makes it a little bit easier to actually build reliable code, all reliable application. Because right now this is pretty unreliable. Um, so that is that. I know I was all over the place in this video. I'm starting to understand why I kind of go all over the place. And I have noticed that most successful developers that I've known that are like code on a day-to-day basis, that are like that have more than like 10 or 15 years of experience, tend to do exactly what I do. They're just sort of all over the place. They're just like bouncing around. I think it is a skill that you have to develop over time, but that like it is a skill that doesn't really serve you outside of coding. Most people, like if you go to a restaurant and you're ordering food and all that, the server would like you just to stay on task and not like sort of bounce around in all kinds of different weird ways. So it's sort of a skill that you want to develop in your professional life, but then because you got to understand so many different things to be a successful software developer. But like it is a skill that will really screw you up if you do it outside of or even out loud. And see, that's like another thing. I was always trying to figure out, like, okay, why is it that I watch all these YouTube, like watching YouTube tutorials is better than not watching YouTube tutorials for sure. But it was like, why, like, unless I'm looking for a very specific fix, and like, because there was a long time where I would not watch any video about software development that was more than 3 minutes long. If it was more than 3 minutes long, I'm like, okay, they're not focused on whatever they say they're focused on. Um, blah blah blah. And the thing is, but then like I would watch some people that kind of do like I do, but it's more like just to kind of get the feel for how you do things. But there's so little of this sort of content, and the reason there is so little of this kind of content is because nobody watches it. Um, and it so anyways, uh, that and nobody watches it because it's kind of like hard to learn anything directly from it. You kind of have to wait for it. And like, so if I make anything, so some people do watch my application, my videos, and I think most of it is just so that they can kind of be around the words, and they can kind of work on the vocabulary and kind of come up with different ways of phrasing things and stuff like that. I don't think that you watch my videos to actually learn how to actually specifically code, but you might learn something along the way. Um, but most things, you want them to make a specific thing that you're trying to understand, and then so like I remember I can't remember what it was. I was trying to understand something. I think I was trying to understand like what grammar, like language grammars, and parsing and lexing and those sorts of things. I was trying to understand that, and every video I found was like this, just this rambling, weird ass thing where people are just talking around in circles, and you just can't figure out what the heck they're talking about. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I do feel like someone like that likes to make content might benefit. Like you could read and say, oh yeah, no, I should make a video about higher order functions. Oh yeah, no, I should make a video about um, refactoring, specifically like moving a component from one place to another and all that. Just like a 3 minute, highly polished, highly, all kinds of, just effects and stuff like that in order to make things make more sense, you know. But anyways, if you are watching this stuff, I definitely appreciate it. And happy coding. Bye.